Hello, my name is David. I just uploaded my animated short film, Merry Madness. I needed to design two monsters for the film, the Great Rat and the Terrible Hound. This video will cover my creative process bringing the Terrible Hound to life. This video will cover the idea behind the monster, the reference I managed to gather, my design choices, my drawings, my choice of colour palette, and my fully finished 3D clay sculpture. The whole process culminates in the living, breathing, moving creature featured in the animated short film itself. This video is going to be a real laid back one. Enjoy. I started by sketching whatever came into my head. I needed to design two monsters, one good and one evil. My initial idea was to make them the same creature, just one emaciated, sick and dying with an exposed skull, and the other alive and well, healthy with a full coat of fur. I drew these two sketches and I had a backbone to work from. I made a second sketch of my evil creature immediately afterward, again with no reference, just to get a better idea of the personality I was looking for in my monster. At this stage, it was a far more humanoid looking creature, but I really liked the calm, painful look to the thing. It's as if it's in a constant state of dying, but with the most unknowing and expressionless face, so it can't reflect that to us empathetic facial feature seeking human beings. I liked the mane of tentacles, the exposed skull, and the blank eyes. I was inspired by the films of Guillermo del Toro, the puppets and creatures designed by Stan Winston Studios, and the fantastical monsters featured in the likes of Jim Henson's Dark Crystal. But what I was designing was essentially an animal, and I wanted to go to the source of that. I went to Edinburgh Museum, took photographs and did a few quick sketches of whatever I felt was relevant to the design, and for design inspiration in general. Most of these drawings were of skulls. I focused mostly on mammals and reptiles. I had decided at the moment of conception that this creature was going to have an exposed skull, and I wanted to get the shape and the look of that skull correct. For further reference, I went to St Andrews Aquarium and Deep Sea World. These places don't have a whole lot of mammals, mostly reptiles and fish, but I wanted my hound to be not strictly mammalian. I had decided that creating an unnatural amalgamation of different species would perhaps add contrast to the rat. The rat looks strictly mammalian. He's like a monkey, ape-like creature that could have had parents and evolved to look like that. The hound, in comparison, looks like a one-off mutated unnatural abomination. Drawing and design. This is the fun part. This is where I took all of the reference I had gathered and all the ideas I had gotten, and I start actually drawing the creature. An exposed skull, pupilless, expressionless eyes, and a mane of tentacles were the three things I had wanted from day one, and I stuck with them. This drawing here, I really liked. The slumped heavy head and neck and high shoulders looks really sickly to me, and I wanted to carry that forward. I did so many drawings of the hound, and I was never satisfied with the head. I was having problems designing a skull that I really liked. And then, midway through the design process, I went to Glasgow to visit a Tyrannosaurus Rex. This wasn't a reference trip, this wasn't for the project, I just love dinosaurs. This was the first time I think I'd ever seen a real-life dinosaur skeleton. Not a cast, but the real deal, a real complete animal. This is Trex, an 80% complete fossil T-Rex. This is a genuine fossil of a real-life dinosaur. I had spent a month or so at this point drawing and designing monsters and fantastical creatures, but right in front of me was a real-life dragon. or what the world has left of this impossibly ancient creature. This was real. 65 to 66 million years ago, this 12.5 meter long predatory monster hunted and bred and fought, and I was looking at a skull with bumps and cracks and healed wounds, an animal that lived and battled and died an inconceivable amount of time ago, and its ancient fossil bones were right there in front of me, and I was looking into the empty eye sockets of maybe the coolest thing that has ever existed. And I was like, yeah, a bit of that. That's all I need. I need a bit more of that in it. The final skull design that I decided upon was of course a mix of mammalian, boar or hippo-like traits mixed with some reptilian, alligator-like traits. But I also like to think there's a whole lot of tricks in that face as well. A thing I haven't talked much about yet is the colour. The colour of the Hound was something I had decided upon really early on and it never really changed. The rat and the Hound are supposed to be poetic opposites of each other, life, death, good, evil. The rat was always going to be natural colours, muddy autumn browns and oranges, and the Hound, the opposite, unnatural blues and purples and neon pinks. I created these two quick watercolour mock-ups to test the colour choice and I really liked the result, especially in contrast with that of the rat, which was the whole point. I wanted to make a clay maquette, a full 3D sculpture to really finalise the Hound's design. Sculpting is something I really enjoy, and sculpting my own monsters, my own dinosaurs, is something I absolutely love to do. It also really helps finalise an imaginative monster design fully in 3D before creating the digital model. I decided to base my sculpture, the pose and the colour and the design, mostly off of that one watercolour mock-up I did. I began by roughly modelling all the parts of the Hound, the limbs and the torso and the tail, in clay. This is bad clay, don't use it. People ask me what clay I use this clay. I do not recommend it, it's bad clay. I don't know why I use it, I just do. Once all of the limbs are dried and solid, I glue them all together and wait for that to dry. Eventually I have sort of this really solid clay armature base to work from. I then go in with anything I can, knives and carving tools and spoons and pens and anything to create the skin textures and musculature I want. I do this in patches. I add a patch of fresh clay and sculpt into that and then wait for that to dry and then work on another patch. This takes days and days and days, but I'm only really working for 30 minutes at a time. I painted her with basic spray paints, acrylic paint, brushes, and used basic mixed media materials such as glosses and fake branches and hot glue. Finally, I have my finished sculpture. She's huge. I'd say she's about 18 inches tall and about 20 something inches wide, and super heavy because she's 100% solid clay. No armature in there whatsoever. This design was to reflect depression and death, violence, evil, fear, etc. I wanted her to be ugly but not unappealing. The point of this short film and this monster is to show that terrible things in terrible times aren't necessarily bad for you. In fact, they're somewhat beautiful and essential and can be healthy. And there's definitely a tragic beauty to that. The terrible Hound was supposed to be, of course, terrible, but oddly empathetic. It's a real challenge creating a horrible monster to represent sickliness and pain, but also make that thing pretty to look at. It was important that she wasn't utterly hideous for the sake of the story. I sculpted this creature to be a mass of oddly matched asymmetric muscles and tendons and bones protruding from the skin, a skin wrinkly and leathery and slimy, so it was really easy getting that sickly, painful, disgusting look down. But where I think I've succeeded in making this creature appealing is in her colour. It would have been very, very easy to have gone even further and made the Hound jet black or a sickly pale skin tone and cover her in rashes and red patches and blood and boils, but instead, this mix of purples and blues and pinks are quite unconventional, unnatural, but I think they look really, really nice. It makes her look poisonous, which adds to her sickliness, but in turn making her somewhat beautiful, like a poisonous frog or fish. These are vibrant, beautiful, unnatural, deadly colours. Very fitting. With her design finished and the clay sculpture sitting in front of me for reference, I modelled and textured and rigged the 3D model to be used in the animated short film. This is honestly where the design really starts coming to life. It's one thing to think up a character and draw a character and write a backstory and personality for that character, creating your own little world, your own little person. But it's something infinitely more gratifying and magical, giving that character a voice and a personality and seeing that character get up and move and breathe. It's just fantastic. This 3D model is fully rigged and can walk and pounce and do anything and everything a fully rigged character model can do. But in the short film, she is confined to essentially one pose, stuck in a tube. It's kind of a shame, because I designed her to skulk and run and crawl, but none of that is ever seen in the short film. Which is fine, it didn't serve the story. Yeah, it's a good thing I'm working on a sequel then, huh? From concept to reference and research to early sketches to colour mock-ups to a fully detailed and painted clay sculpture maquette to a finalised character fully realised in an animated short film, it was a joy bringing through entirely my own imagination this character, this monster, the Terrible Hound, to life. It really was. The Terrible Hound is the monster lurking under your bed. She's the worry keeping you up at night until 3 AM. She's your sadness and your fears and your horrors. She's poison and she's sickness. She's a horrible thing to experience, but also a very essential and healthy thing to experience, and a very essential and healthy thing to overcome. If you guys want to check out my sketchbook for my whole Merry Madness project, this entire sketchbook is on my Patreon page right now, alongside the sketchbooks from all of my previous animated short films. This sketchbook covers the process of designing and sculpting both the Grey Rat and the Terrible Hound, following into the process of creating the animated short film itself. Full high-resolution photographs of the entire book, the whole sketchbook, are available on my Patreon page. Please consider, if you want, checking them out. Hope you guys enjoyed this insight into my creative process in designing the Terrible Hound. Next week I'll be covering the Great Rat. Bye guys.